Welcome back to Extension Network. Today, Terry and I are going to make two dishes for you using kale and apples, both of which are produce that is in season now here in Georgia. As a matter of fact, kale is one of those cool weather vegetables that is found readily in your grocery stores, farmers markets, and even in the backyard gardens. So for those of you who have green thumbs, we may be sharing some recipes that you can use those greens or that kale that you are growing. Now, Terry, we know that kale comes in different varieties. Yes. Probably the most common one we see is the curly kale. Yes. But can you tell us a little bit about the different varieties that kale you might find in the grocery store or at farmers markets?
Sure. We have basically 4 varieties of kale. The first variety would be the ornamental kale, which you see in flower borders. And people ask, can that be eaten? Well, it could be eaten, but I wouldn't eat it because it's not going to be as sweet and the stems will be a lot more tougher. Now, the 3 varieties that we usually eat would be 1, the curly leaf kale, which you see here. This is the variety that you see in stores most often this time of year. And then we have the Russian kale. This is very different. As you can see, it has purple veins. And then we also have a flat leaf kale. That's also called Tuscan kale. That may be a little difficult to find this time of year unless you grow it in your own garden. So this kale, which you see here, is the ruffle kale or the curly leaf kale. This is what you'll find most often in the grocery stores right now. Okay?
So when you are actually going to the grocery store at the farmer's market, what do we need to look for when we're purchasing kale? Because there are certain things that we want to get the best quality for our dollar, and of course we want it to be very tasty. So yes. What do we need to look for when we're purchasing kale?
Well, the first thing you want to look for are the nice frilly leaves that are fresh, they're firm. If you look at this kale leaf, this is a kale leaf that has some yellowing on the end. This is what you don't want. This is the last thing you want to do is get the kale once it starts to yellow. Even if you're getting it out of your garden, try to avoid the kale with the yellowing leaves, okay? And just get one that's very dark green. If you can see through this bag, the kale is very dark, almost a bluish color. So you want to get leaves that are very healthy and very dark. And if you get your kale in a bag, just take a very close look at it inside the bag. A lot of kale you buy today won't be in a bag. It will actually be in a bunch, so you'll be able to see it a little better.
Now, Terry, when we're looking at the kale leaves, the smaller the better, right?
Oh, yes. The smaller the better because your smaller leaves will be your most tender leaves. So you want to try and get the smallest leaves possible. The bigger they get, the tougher the leaves will be.
Now, when we say that our leaves should be dark green in color, we do know that kale, like a lot of our greens, are very, very high in vitamins A and C and K, potassium and calcium.
Yes.
So there are a lot of vitamins found in these dark, lean, leafy vegetables. And so, as with all our dark green leafy vegetables,
yes.
That's a tongue twist, we need to make sure that we are selecting the darkest and greenest leaves possible. So after we've purchased them and brought them home, mm-hmm. If we're not going to use them immediately, what do we do with them?
Well, if you're not going to use your kale that day, I would suggest you take your kale and wash it very thoroughly. Once you wash the kale, go ahead and take the kale and put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in the coldest part of your refrigerator.
Okay, and yes, when we bring it home, we should actually just stick it in a bag, mm-hmm. and such as our kale right here, seal it up, and then we store it in the refrigerator up to 3 to 5 days. If it goes much beyond that 5-day mark, then our kale and our other greens do seem to get a little bit more bitter the longer yes. that we store them. So once again, just simply sticking those greens in a plastic bag, sealing them up, storing them in the coldest part of your refrigerator for 3 to 5 days will maintain its quality, mm-hmm. and you'll be able to have nice fresh kale.
Okay, and also we want to move on to your kale and trimming your kale. Once you get your kale home and you've decided that, okay, we're going to cook the kale or we're going to use it in a salad, you have the kale leaves, and once again, they're very curly, very, very curly, frilly leaves. I'm going to show you how to go ahead and trim your kale because you don't want to cook it whole, because if you look, there's a very thick stem. That stem is going to be very tough, especially if you're using it in a salad. So I'm going to show you three ways to trim your kale. The easiest way to trim the kale would be just to go ahead and pull it off. This is the old-fashioned way. It gets the job done. Just pull it off and you're left with the stem, and that's basically it. Okay? But if you wanted to do something different, I would say go ahead. If you want to cut it off, you have two ways of cutting the kale. You can lay the kale flat. Just go straight down. Go as high as you want. And once again, you have the stem here and you have your pieces of kale. Or you could take the kale, fold it in half, and kind of, you see your ribs showing here. Let me move that out of the way. You see the ribs showing here. Just go ahead and go down the side of that. Very easy to do. And there you go. There's your kale.
That's really easy.
Very easy.
Like a lot of greens, Terry, our kale has a lot more fiber and roughage to it, and so sometimes it's very easy to pull them off the stem, and sometimes you might need to use the knife to trim them off the stem as well. Now, once you have trimmed your leaves, the next important step when you're preparing any kind of fruit or vegetable is to wash it. And especially with greens, it's very important to wash your greens, not simply rinse them. Especially the ones that are not pre-bagged, like we have our lettuce leaves that are pre-bagged. Sometimes you can get your greens pre-bagged and pre-washed. But if you don't purchase a pre-washed or pre-bagged green, you do need to make sure that you're cleaning them thoroughly so that you have a quality product. So I'm just going to take a minute and show you how we can simply wash our greens. So what you would do at home is you would take a large bowl, put it in your sink, fill it with cool water, and then you would take your leaves and you would drop them in your bowl with the water. You would swish them or agitate your leaves, gently rubbing them so that you're removing all the surface dirt and grit. For those of you who have ever eaten a green that was not washed thoroughly, you'll know what I mean when I say that greens can be gritty. So we want to make sure that we are removing all that dirt and grit off of those leaves. And then after you have completed, just agitating them for a few minutes and rubbing them, you want to take them and place them in a colander. And then take a look at your water. For those of you who may be getting greens straight out of the garden, this water will be very dirty and dark. So what you would do is simply empty that bowl out again, refill it with fresh, clean water, and repeat the step until your water is clear like mine and you have nice, clean greens.
Yes. Okay. Now that we've gotten our greens clean, we can go ahead and start our recipe now. The first recipe we're going to do is called Sweet Southern Braised Kale and Apples. Let me give you the ingredients for that. We will use 1 pound of kale, 3 to 4 cloves of garlic, sliced or minced, 1½ cups of diced fresh apples, 1/2 to 1 medium onion, 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil, 1/3 cup of apple cider, and 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. Very simple recipe.
I'm going to be your assistant,
okay,
Carrie. So here are our ingredients that you just named off, and you can.
Okay, so we're going to be cooking with our skillet today. Let's get the heat up on this. I'm going to turn that up a bit. And the first thing we want to do is to go ahead and put our oil in the skillet. Okay, so we're going to use extra virgin olive oil. You can use whatever oil you like, but we're using extra virgin olive oil because it's heart healthy, okay? Putting about 2 tablespoons of oil in there. Depends on how much kale you have, how much oil you'll be needing, but about 2 to 3 tablespoons should be good. Okay, so we have it on high because we want to try and get it pretty hot so we can kind of saute our greens once we get them in there, okay? So the next thing we want to add is the garlic. We have 3 to 4 cloves of garlic. And when we say cloves of garlic, we don't mean the whole head. That's the individual pieces that you take off of the garlic head. That's a clove. So 2 to 3 cloves of the garlic. All right?
I think we have one on the tray.
Oh, yes, we sure
show
do.
them.
This is actually the clove of garlic. It comes off of the head. So we'll use 2 to 3 cloves of garlic today, depending on what you like. If you like more garlic, you can add more. If you don't like it, you can cut back on the garlic or omit it altogether. The next thing we want to add would be our onions. And we're using a Vidalia sweet onion here today.
If you didn't have a Vidalia onion, any sweet onion would do, but of course we're always
Yes.
going to say to use that Vidalia onion whenever
Yes.
possible.
Yes. Let me grab a spoon here to saute that. Do we have a wooden spoon?
I have a fork.
Okay. All right, so we got our onions in there, and we got our garlic in there. Now, at this point, you can go ahead and add your kale. Adding a little bit at a time. You can saute this garlic and onion as long as you like to get it as done as you like before you add your kale if you want it cooked a little bit longer. So you can kind of add the kale. I'm going to turn this down just a little bit. Add your kale a little bit at a time here. Kind of stir fry it as we add it. As you can tell, the temperature went down because we added quite a bit of kale. So we're going to give that kale time, the temperature time to come up. So we're just going to saute it a bit here. It's going to take a little while to cook the kale down.
So Terry, that looks like a lot of greens in that pan, but we know that when it comes to greens, when you're planning on cooking greens, usually they will cook down quite a bit.
Yes.
So what looks like a lot in the pan right now,
Yes.
in the end will be a much smaller amount.
You see we had a large bowl full of kale. As big as this bowl is, this kale is going to cook down pretty well depending on how long you let it cook. Now as far as how long we will let ours cook, kale cooks anywhere from 5 to 15, maybe even 20 minutes, depending on how tender you want your leaves. It's already starting to cook down a bit. I'm going to wait before I add my apples to get this kale cooked a little bit more, okay?
And Terry, did you know that when you are braising or sauteing greens such as kale, that through the cooking process, as they caramelize, they actually become sweeter. So
Yes, yes.
actually this method makes for a sweeter green
Yes.
when we're sauteing them.
Very, very much so. So now that we've got these cooked down just a bit, we're going to go ahead and add our liquid. Now the liquid we add will give it quite a bit of sweetness because we're adding apple juice and apple cider. That's going to give the kale a very, very nice flavor, I think. We're not going to add our apples quite yet, so let's go ahead and measure out the apple cider. We're going to use 1/3 cup of apple cider and 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. And we can just go ahead and put all that into 1 cup. So let's get our 1 tablespoon of vinegar. Okay, and then we have 1/3 cup of apple cider. So let's see if we can get 1/3 cup here. Okay, I think that's about 1/3 cup. So let's take a look at the kale again and see how it's doing. So we're going to add some liquid to this, just because we don't want it to burn in to add the sweetness. Okay. Now, if you need a little bit more liquid at this time, you can add more liquid if you want to. Doesn't matter. We have some liquid that's going to come from our apples. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and add the apples in here. And we added 1.5 cups of fresh apples. So let's go ahead and saute that. Now at this point, the apples, they're very crunchy right now, but if you want them to be a little softer and tender, continue to cook them for a little while longer. So once again, it's up to you how tender you want your greens and how tender you want the apples to be. They started to cook down.
They're such a pretty color now, too.
Yes.
As you cook them, they get darker.
Yes, yes. So we're going to turn this down a little bit. We have everything in there that we're supposed to cook. So at this point, we can go ahead and let this saute a bit and cook down these greens. And once again, anywhere from 5 to 15 or 20 minutes, depending on your taste. So we're going to give these apples and the kale a rest here and just let them cook a little bit. And we're going to turn these down a bit. Okay?
All right. Well, I tell you what, I'll man the pot over here, the skillet, and make sure that they are sauteing nicely. And Terry, you can show us the recipe that we have for a raw kale salad. So kale can be eaten cooked or raw. And actually, when we eat it raw, we actually get more fiber in our diet by eating our vegetables raw. And so we have fruits and vegetables in this salad as well.
Yes.
So Terry, let's go ahead and move this out of the way, and I'll let you show them how to make that raw kale salad.
All right.
Now kale is one of those superfoods. They have named it a superfood. And while that may not mean exactly that all fruits and vegetables aren't superfoods, kale is one of those foods that we need to be eating at least once a week.
Yes.
Dark green vegetables we should be eating once a week. And most specifically, now in February is Heart Health Month. So we want to emphasize fruits and vegetables in our diet. We do know that fruits and vegetables are part of a heart-healthy diet, and so we need to be eating at least 4 to 5 cups of vegetables and fruits a day. And so both of these dishes would be easy to incorporate in our heart-healthy diet.
Yes.
So Terry, show us what you're going. Tell us what you're going to make here with our raw kale salad.
Okay. The raw kale salad is actually a recipe that I adapted and kind of made it my own. But the recipe comes from the cookbook here, which is entitled Farm to Table from the Master Gardeners of Cobb County. So the recipe, original recipe, can be found in this cookbook, and the cookbook is available here at our office if you would like to purchase it. Now, the recipe originally called for mixed greens, but instead of mixed greens, we're going to be using kale. So the greens are very interchangeable. You can use kale, mixed greens, spinach, whatever greens you like. All right, so we're going to start with 1 pound of kale. Once again, the kale has been trimmed and it has been cut. Now for this salad, you want to make sure your kale is cut in small pieces, small ribbon-sized pieces. That way it'll make the kale taste a lot more tender, as opposed to biting into a large piece of kale and having to chew the kale for a while. Just go ahead and cut it up in the smallest pieces that you can, okay? So there's our kale. Now this is a very simple recipe. Calls for 1 pound of kale, 2 cups of sliced fresh apples, strawberries, pears, or mango. Now the fruit is up to you. Today we're going to be using pears. 2 avocados sliced, 2 to 4 ounces of feta cheese or blue cheese. It's up to you, or if you prefer another cheese. And 1 cup of pecans if you desire to have the pecans as a topping. All right, and then the last thing we'll make is our homemade salad dressing to go with this. No need in making a fresh kale salad and then have a bottled salad dressing. So we're going to make our own salad dressing today. And the salad dressing is very simple, only 4 ingredients. 1/3 cup of apple cider vinegar, 1/3 cup of olive oil, 1/3 cup of canola oil, and 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard. That's it, very simple. So let's go ahead and get our kale assembled here. Going to pour the kale in a nice salad bowl. If you will put that over there for me, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. 2 cups of fresh apples, or we said pears, strawberries, or mango, whatever fruit you desire. We're using pears today because we found a delicious pears in the store and I thought they would be really nice. Okay, so adding our pears. Let's kind of toss them in there. Put that away. Okay, and then we have 2 avocados. We didn't go ahead and slice our avocado early because we didn't want it to turn dark, so we're waiting. So to do the avocado, let me go ahead and put this up here so I can slice my avocado. So I've kind of cut the avocado in half, just went around here and twisted it around. That's going to make that come out really easy. Now to get this out, this is a little trick here. Kind of slice it up inside, and then I'm going to pull this back over here because I'm going to pop this out. It comes out pretty easy. Let's go ahead. Oops. Let's go ahead and scrape that out of there. Should be in slices, but you don't have to use the slices. And this one we have, okay, I got that out. Once again, we're going to just kind of push this out, easiest way to go. And there you go. We'll put this. Okay. And let me grab a paper towel as well. That got a little messy, so.
Absolutely.
Okay. Once again, we're going to kind of toss the avocados in there. How we doing, Cindy?
It's smelling delicious.
Smelling delicious, okay. So we got our avocados in there, and we also have our pears in there. Now, also the feta cheese. We can go ahead and put the feta cheese in there. Once again, use the kind of cheese that you like. If you don't like feta or blue cheese, use another cheese. I think it adds a very nice flavor. So we're going to put our feta cheese in there. Oops. And that's basically it. If you're adding any pecans, you can put your pecans on there as well. And the next phase we're going to go to is making our maple. It's called Polly's Fabulous Salad Maple Cider Vinaigrette. It actually goes with the salad, and the vinaigrette is also in the cookbook. So let's go ahead and get that together. We're going to actually put it, yes, Cindy?
I was going to say, Terry, this is such a simple salad, but what's nice about it is you can intermix. Say you don't have kale, you could use spinach leaves.
Yes.
And with the fruits you already said you can use any type of fruit that you want, and also feta. What if that's not your favorite cheese? What else could you use?
Well, if you don't like feta, and a lot of people don't, you have blue cheese, which is actually a little bit more tart. You can use mozzarella cheese, provolone cheese, any kind of cheese you like to put in there. Or if you don't like cheese, you don't have to put the cheese in there. You can omit it all together. Okay?
So this is one of those dishes that you truly can make your own.
Yes, yes. I love making dishes where you can make your own, where things are interchangeable, because the whole point is to make something that you'll enjoy and that your family will enjoy as well. All right, so to get the salad dressing going, we're going to take 1/3 cup of apple cider vinegar. Okay. That's 1/3 cup of vinegar. And we're actually going to mix it up in a jar. This is the easiest way. Once you get your salad dressing ingredients together, just go ahead and put it in a jar and mix it all up. So we'll go ahead and pour 1/3 cup of cider vinegar in there. And then we need 1/3 cup of olive oil. Again, we're using the olive oil. We're going to use the same cup because it's all going to be going into the same place together. 1/3 cup of the olive oil. And because olive oil can sometimes be have quite a bit of taste to it, we're adding the canola oil. If you don't like canola oil, you can use a different oil. So we're going to put another 1/3 cup of that in here. And then to this, we're only going to add one more ingredient, which is 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard. Now let me find my measuring cups here. Okay, 1/3 cup of that. Now it's that simple.
That is very good,
Very
and it looks excellent. And one thing I wanted to point out, we already mentioned that it's American Heart Month, and we do know that fruits and vegetables and all of the dishes that we prepare for a healthy diet, we do need to make sure that we are using our oils in moderation or sparingly. And when we are choosing oils, we want to choose those heart-healthy oils that are monosaturated or polyunsaturated, like our olive oils and our canola oils. So these are both very good oils for heart health as well.
And one ingredient I forgot to put in, which is the main flavoring, is the maple syrup. that gives it the sweetness. So I forgot to add that on. So make sure you put your maple syrup in there. And now that we have all these ingredients in the jar, there it is. We're just going to give it a shake. And to me, this is the easiest way to get your salad dressing together, and you're done. And if you don't want to serve the salad right now, you can take this, put it in the refrigerator, put your salad dressing in the refrigerator, and bring it back out when you're ready to serve it to your guests and your family, okay? And it's that easy. So you see it's mixed up, looks very pretty. And we're just going to go ahead and drizzle that.
That looks great.
And you got homemade salad dressing in less than a minute. That was so easy. Couldn't have been easier. Okay. And you just want to kind of toss it together. And the longer this sits, the better the flavor will be, because it will give the salad greens time to really absorb that flavor. And so go ahead and make it ahead of time if you like, if you want to, but you don't have to. It's up to you. And well, there you go.
That's great, Terry. That looks wonderful. And both of these methods, or preparation methods, for our greens, our salad today, our raw salad, and our braised salad, are healthy ways of preparing our foods. When it comes to greens, we can bake them, we can saute them, we can grill them, we can eat them raw. All of these methods will really ensure that we have a very good, healthy green salad or a green dish. So thank you today. Thank you, Terry, for coming today and showing us how to make these two wonderful dishes. We're going to actually stop this right here and let you see that our greens have cooked down very nicely.
Very nicely.
They are nice and tender with some very pretty color. Our apples are also at that tender stage where it's going to be a very, very good dish. So I say, Terry, let's grab a fork and a plate over there and enjoy our braised apple and kale vegetables and our raw kale salad. We are going to have the recipes. You'll be able to see them at the end of the show. We'll post them on the website at the end of the show. And if you would like more information about these recipes and more, please just call us here at the Cobb County Cooperative Extension Office at 770-528-4070.